If you've been elected or appointed, if you've been installed into an office and you still do not know the work at a minimum for opening and closing all the lodges, don't let that ever happen again. Don't let yourself get caught unaware. Because I say that because you need to be spending that year focusing on preparing for the next year. And so if you already don't know how to handle the business in your current position, you're behind the game. Hello, friends. Hello, brothers. This is Justin Jones with the Masonic Improvement podcast, YouTube channel, wherever you're watching this.
Movement. It's the Masonic Improvement movement.
Speaking of movements, I'm joined with the sage of South Texas, the guru of Gilead, Right Worshipful, D. Yitty.
You know, I won't get near as mad about that introduction as my brothers in Goliad. You know, you think you want to visit. Now you might want to rethink that.
Before we really get started, I want to just remind everybody, if you've been listening for any period of time, or if you're new to Masonic Improvement, if you get any value out of this content, we put out videos pretty much every week with very few exceptions. Consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That way you can keep up to date with all the content that comes out. If you're listening through a podcast, please be sure to subscribe to us through whatever podcatcher or podcast client that you use to listen to us. And be sure to drop us a positive rating, please, as well. I also want to mention we're dusting off Patreon. Used to bring it up a lot. It kind of fell by the wayside because things got hectic and it wasn't on the forefront of my attention. However, really wanted to bring that back. We also have something called Buy Me a Coffee. Some people prefer that. You can just send a small one-time donation to Masonic Improvement. I'm a big fan of the saying, feed the things you want to grow and starve the things that got to go. If you get any value out of Masonic Improvement, keep in mind that this is something that Dennis and I do voluntarily out of our passion from the fraternity. However, the cost of doing business, the cost of upgrading our equipment, keeping the website going, there's lots of bits and pieces. Any contributions that you'd be willing to make would definitely help to support Masonic Improvement, help us to continue to grow it, get the message out to more brothers, bring more light to the fraternity, and just dispel any misinformation that's out there, as well as hopefully potentially even grow the fraternity. So me speaking personally, we're doing good work. I'm not asking for handouts, but if anyone finds value, again, I would just really like to reinforce the importance of supporting the things that are important.
So real quick, just plain and simple. We love what we do. We do it for the fun of it. We do it for you. We're here to help you, if that makes any sense. Help you to help your brotherhood. We're all in this together. However, ultimately, we would like nice headphones and nice microphones and stuff so that we can give better content. That's what this pitch is all about. It's not to make us rich. It's just to help us to help everyone else. And And so it's not such a burden on our own families while we're bringing this to you guys.
All of that out of the way. All that out of the way that is said and done. I don't want to beat a dead horse. What I would really like to discuss tonight.
Starting to sound like a lodge meeting.
The election of officers is over. Installation of officers is taking place across the state. Probably most lodges or a vast majority of them have already gone through installations. I personally know of a few that have them still coming up. So I know it's not completely a done deal. However, what I wanted to really focus on for this conversation, I want to really speak to the new worshipful masters, new wardens, and because I'm a past master.
New officers.
I know you're a past master.
In general,
yes. Yeah, new officers in general. I want to speak from experience, what you and I learned, the takeaways we got. For anyone that's new, maybe they don't have that mentorship or coaching that they'll learn about at OLT, but maybe they don't have that right now, and so they're kind of drowning already. Or maybe
we're going to teach you how to get there at OLT also.
Yeah. I mean, we'll definitely talk about that.
We're going to talk about that specifically. Justin and I are. So
that said, I want Dennis, I want you just to kind of lead with your thoughts, just for new officers, new wardens, new worshipful masters, whatever order you want to tackle that in. Just share the most important takeaways or the things that you wish you had known when you began that journey through the chairs. And then in about 3 or 4 hours, when you're finished, I'll give my thoughts very briefly because I'm a concise guy.
And that is so true, as most of you know. So thank you so much for offering me the opportunity to come first, because if I'm last, I will definitely be last.
I wanted to take a nap before I spoke.
Yes, rest up for the occasion. He's going to take notes on everything I say and then tell you to do the exact opposite of what I just said. Just kidding.
Most of the listeners already know that.
You know, but most of the listeners listen to me. The small majority listens to you.
Whatever you gotta tell yourself, man. Whatever.
It helps me sleep your thoughts. Night. Okay, brothers. So very first thing, let me start with this. And this is a very sobering thought that you should consider as worshipful master. You have been given the title worshipful sir. You've been put in charge of the lodge. The one thing that may or may not have hit you yet is that you are the fiduciary responsible party to your lodge. So no matter what happens, you can always say, well, I didn't do this. I didn't say it was okay, whatever. You are the one that will fall and take the heat no matter what happens, good or bad. You will take the heat. So remember that you have a real liability. You have a real responsibility to your lodge to make sure that it's run properly. So very first thing out of the gate that I would say to the new masters out there, which I'm sure I'm stealing it from Justin already, form your audit committee on your very first meeting. Assign your audit committee to get your Form 71 prepared, and make sure that your secretary has Form 990 prepared. That they can both be found in Grandview, and one of them is an actual form for the audit committee to do an audit of your lodge, and the 990 is an actual link that takes you to the IRS site to do your taxes for the lodge.
And the law book will tell you exactly how your committee has to consist.
Yes. The law book does explain those committees as well, and the terms and expectancies. Is that right? Expectancies? Expectations of said committees. I like my term better. It sounded better to me.
That's why everyone listens to you, because you're so creative with your words.
It's because I'm relatable. because they feel the same way. They're not masters of their own universe.
Well, everybody's relatable to everybody else in South Texas. You're all cousins.
This is true. And they all poke fun of me because I was born in Alabama. Though I moved here when I was 2, so I've lived here all my life. So that's the very first thing and the most important thing that you can do, because that is going to prepare you for your first visit with your district deputy grand master. He's going to ask for those things. If you don't have them, he's putting in a report that you don't have them. And it doesn't matter what we say or do when we're there in person. What comes out is the data that's inputted in the computer, and we cannot lie because we have to put in there what we're given. So you remember that. It's not us that causes anything to happen. It's the lodge. And ultimately it's on the worshipful master's shoulders. This is going to bring me to point number 2. Point number 2 is that people tend to complain about Grand Lodge and how Grand Lodge does this, Grand Lodge does that. They just want to control us. They just want to tell us what to do. So here's sobering thought number 2. When you were elected, or actually when you were installed as worshipful master, that very moment, you became a member of the Grand Lodge of Texas. You are now a member. You have a vote. Your lodge has a vote. You have that vote for the lodge. You are now a member, and now for the rest of your life, you have one vote towards Grand Lodge. You're a member of the Grand West. It is no longer Grand Lodge does this or that, but we do this and that. Because ultimately, any law that's in there was put into place by brothers. They were not put into place by some controlling entity. This is not Adolf Hitler's regime putting down the gauntlet on everybody that doesn't agree. Because everything we do is voted on. You've been there. If you've been to Grand Lodge, and you should go to Grand Lodge, even if you're not a voting member, you should go, especially as an officer, because you're part of this system now. You're making the wheels turn now as an officer. So you should go and you should witness exactly how things happen, because now it's time for you to take a step up, level up, and realize that you are a full-fledged participating member of the Grand Lodge of Texas now. As worshipful master, this is it. There's no turning back. And now you cannot blame anybody else but yourself for anything that happens going forward. I used to talk in a lot of trash. I said that in past tense, like I don't continuously do it every day, but I don't talk trash about the Grand Lodge. And the reason why is because
I edit you very well.
Number one, I surround myself with bubble wrap. I'm a bubble boy. You can just call me Bubble Boy next time you see me. The Bubble Boy of Goliath. And I'm protected by the world because I keep people in place that protect me. That's a true statement. But really, though, when it comes to Grand Lodge, I don't think ill of Grand Lodge for anything that's going on right now or that has transpired. It's all the brothers that has made this happen. It's just like with our country. We're voting members. When we turned 18, we became voting members of our country. And it's all up to us, whichever you choose to do by your action or inaction. So there's your takeaway number 2. So that's reality number 2. And it's so important that we remember that, because, I guess it really struck home this year when I became district deputy grand master that my words have more consequence to more than just me. And so Justin hasn't had to edit me as much as he talks. When we first started, yes, it was like full on 3 hours edited down to half an hour. but I have really stepped up my game and really started to take on the responsibility that I should have taken on a long time ago. You brothers,
trained very well.
I know you trained me well, Obi-Wan. So you brothers out there, just remember that becoming an officer of the lodge, you are a member of these big wheels that are turning. Just remember that you're a working part of this machine that we call Freemasonry, and your part is vital to the existence and the legacy of our fraternity.
Can I make a comment on that?
Absolutely, please do. I need to take a drink.
We often hear Grand Lodge this, Grand Lodge that. People complain about Grand Lodge. If you're a past master, which the majority of Masons are, you are Grand Lodge. You're the Grand West. And
you're the Grand West. Yes.
If you're going to sit there and complain, but you never go to Waco, you never go to Grand Lodge. It's like bullying
functions.
Yeah, it's like complaining about the political climate in the United States with never voting. You have a say in how things go, and so if you're just going to be an armchair warrior and sit in lodge and complain about the things that happen at Grand Lodge when you never show up, that's hypocritical.
Well, and to that point, that is a very bold statement. And to that point, consider this. If you're the voter that just shows up to vote for the president, and you don't show up to vote for any of your council members, any of your county seats, any of that, same thing. They're the ones who actually have the influence over your day-to-day life. They're the ones that actually work the infrastructure that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It's not the president. The president is the figurehead for this whole conglomerate. That's what he is. Just like the Grand Master is. The Grand Master, sure, he's implemented some things and made suggestions for committees to work on to try to push forward, but it's really the trustees as a whole that have been doing this, and they continue to do that. So that we can have different programs, and they try to keep it all fresh and change it up so that, none of us get bored after 10, 20, 30, 40, hopefully 50 years of this. But to Justin's statement, I need to stop hitting the table. To Justin's statement, if you're only voting for the big election and you're not showing up day in, day out to your lodge and putting in the work and being the change that you want to see, you have absolutely no place to complain. That's where my idea of shut up, past master comes from, is that right there. You have absolutely no right to sit there on the sidelines and tell somebody how to do that degree when you don't show up for the training days to help teach that guy the work. On our floor school days, if you're not showing up and contributing, you have no right to sit back and criticize and complain about what happens at the degree if it doesn't go the way you think it should. So, and that goes with, insert object here with all the different functions in our lodges and within Grand Lodge. Simple facts. If you're not actively working for a solution to whatever ailments you see, then you are working against the solution to any ailments you see. You're part of the problem. If you're not a part of the solution, you are part of the problem.
Savage.
That was an excellent point, Justin. I'm glad you brought it up.
You're very welcome, Dennis. I did it for you.
I know. And so everybody, if you're upset with what's been said, just remember Justin brought that up. Had nothing to do with me. I was just reiterating what Justin said. He's the brains of the bunch. I'm just the puppet, and he's just,
I'm not a district deputy. It's okay. I don't represent anybody. And I never have been, and at this rate, I probably never will be. So it's
I
okay.
am, and I'm very proud to be. And it's a very nice place to be. And it's a lot nicer when the people that you're serving um, understand the importance of their roles in the fraternity. You know, all of the brothers in my district, they understand their roles. They understand how important their jobs are. And then my job's not a job. My job is fun and easy,
They
you
know
know,
their roles.
because they're getting the work done.
So you're
Yeah,
saying
there's
you
a
put
lot of
them all
role
in their
play.
place? Are you running
Roll
a
call.
tyrant over there?
Roll call. No, shit. Yeah, right. Everybody knows that I'm not that way when it comes to lodge.
So just to quickly recap before we move too much further into this, it is very important to set up your audit committee as quickly as you can, because the district deputy will be making his official visit before you know it. If you're not familiar with what you need to do, it's in the law book. It tells you exactly what the committee needs to consist of, and how many people, so on and so forth. The paperwork is on it's on Grandview. So get with your secretary about that. Get that knocked out, because the district deputy will be looking for it. Also, as was said, and we kind of said what we wanted to say about this, but just to reiterate, as a new Marshal Master, you are a member of Grand Lodge now, and it's important not only to attend Grand Lodge, but to participate and be mindful that the direction things go is all done by vote. It's all done by vote. Even Grandmaster's decisions are done by vote, because we put him in that position. So
Right.
it's
And he's generally discussing something that's already been approved and voted on. They're just looking for clarification on an approved topic.
Yeah.
That's the facts.
So it's easy to stand by and be idle and complain about the state of things, but unless you are actively participating in Grand Lodge, and then after your year is over as a past master in your lodge, it's easy to complain, but you really have no room to do so.
Yes. And I'd also like to reiterate what Justin said, and that is, look at your law books, brothers. Look at your law books and see what the audit committee is. It is not your secretary, treasurer, and one other guy jumping up to put together an audit committee. It's actually supposed to be an independent entity altogether, not your lodge. But if you can't, then you form a committee that's independent of those people with that fiduciary responsibility. You're checking their work. They're not telling you what their work is and you just say it's okay. You're checking their work. Read the law on it, please, brothers. Please read the law on that.
See, now you got me having to pull it up, because the way I read it is it's recommended that you use someone independent, but you still need to have a committee.
Correct. It's recommended to have someone independent, but if you can't, then a committee is fine.
Yes.
But it's not supposed to consist of the responsible parties that you're auditing.
Yeah, and it also is very specific about like past masters and things such as this. So I don't have
yes. It's supposed to be past masters also.
Yeah,
because the past masters are the members of Grand Lodge. They're good point. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. Since we're talking about it so much, just to be helpful, I'm going to pull up that actual location where it's at. So I'll go ahead and just read this out, and anyone that wants to really deep dive, the article is 284, duty to require audits. It shall be the duty of the Marshal Master as soon as after the 24th of June each year, as convenient, to appoint a committee of 3 qualified members, a certified public accountant, or a public accountant whose duty it shall be to audit the books and accounts of the treasurer and secretary and make prompt report thereof in writing to the lodge. That report needs to be read. I'm paraphrasing now. That report needs to be read in open state of communication and be recorded in full in the minutes. The auditor's report shall fully show the total amounts of receipts and disbursements for the past year. It needs to be the duty of the treasurer and secretary to make sure all the books and records are available to the committee or the accountant appointed to audit everything. A properly
It
completed
says everything.
everything that I just mentioned, like all the information.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just messed with you.
A properly completed and signed copy of minimal audit form number 71 shall be delivered to the Grand Secretary no later than September 15th. And that's, I guess, via the district deputy. Is that typically how that is?
Yes, it goes to the DDGM and the DDGM uploads it. Actually, what happens is you I think the secretary can upload it as well, but you make a copy of it first. Just like the 990, after you do your taxes, you make a copy first and then you submit it. That way you have your copy for your records that you can give to the DDGM and then submit it to Grand Lodge. One last thing, brothers, on top of all that about the audit committee, if you heard one of our recent posts, or I don't know if we released this one or not yet, about the finances and stuff for our lodges, we may not have released that one yet.
Yeah, I think we did agree that it needed more polish. We didn't release it yet.
That's right. That's right. So one thing that we've talked about in the past that I think is very important, and I've talked to people about this with your audit committee. This is actually the proper and correct time that you should have independent people create a profit and loss statement for your lodge. And of course, the profit and loss is going to reflect what the audit has on it. But the profit and loss will show where your money comes from, where it goes, and how it's been distributed each year. That way you'll know if you need to raise dues or not. Now, I know that that's not a popular topic, especially, right now after elections. Nobody wants to be the master that is hated the very first meeting. Though that's something that I brought up. It was either the first or second meeting of my year we discussed that and went ahead and raised the dues.
Hey, if it's good for the lodge, do it.
Do it. If it's not, don't. That's right.
Be the things you want to grow and starve the things that got to go. If you don't care about your lodge, you're not going to fund it and it's going to go away.
So basically, that was something that we had discussed is use that opportunity, that audit committee and if the first one, I know it's a daunting task, but if the first one creates an Excel spreadsheet, then you can just fill in the blanks from that point forward. And then you have the data go from that point forward also, and you can compare from year to year and say this was last year and this year and do it that way. And that's the time to decide where you stand on dues and endowments and stuff.
I would even take it further. Don't just read it in lodge. Do an actual presentation. Like actually put it in front of everybody.
The audit committee should be presenting that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, usually the presentation
that's their job.
Says this, They just go through it like it's just a formality that isn't really important. It's just skimmed over and approved in the minutes like it has to be by the law book. Actually present it. Actually look at the information. Show where everything's coming and going, like you talked about. That way, if that conversation does come up, people can't pretend to be uninformed of what's going on financially in the lodge.
And I'm going to give you a sneak peek into what's coming. But I'll tell you that if it's not created this year, I will create one so that y'all can download it from our site to help y'all out if you want to. We would.
What is it, Dennis? What are you going to make?
No, I'm going to make the Excel spreadsheet and the PowerPoint to where they can just fill in the blanks, copy and paste, cut and paste. And that way they'll have a template. So it's easy for them to use, and it's going to be an honest template too. It's not going to be, somebody trying to skew the numbers to show a certain position. It's going to be a true profit and loss type template for the lodges out there. If you want to partake, you know, you don't have to. It'll just be on our website if you want to take it and check it out. But it's not going to be there yet. We're working on OLT right now, and we're fixing to start that, by the way, guys. So OLT's coming.
Any other points that you want to address?
No, I'll roll off of what you got next.
Okay.
I know you're chomping at the bits.
Oh yeah, always. So there's a few points that I really want to make, and I'm just gonna work my way up through the offices, not the specific offices, but I would say, if you have been elected to an office and you still do not know the work for at least opening and closing that office, or appointed, either way, if you've been elected or appointed, if you've been installed into an office and you still do not know the work at a minimum for opening and closing all the lodges, don't let that ever happen again. Don't let yourself get caught unaware. Because I say that because you need to be spending that year focusing on preparing for the next year. And so if you already don't know how to handle the business in your current position, you're behind the game. And for I'd say that's with all things. Yeah. But for the minor offices, which there's nothing really minor in the lodge, in my opinion, but for the if you're just going through for the appointed offices and things like that, it's okay. It's not too late. There's not always a lot of work. I tell you this now, train yourself now, because eventually you're going to find yourself in a warden position, and it's the responsibility starts building up. And so you need to be familiar as a senior deacon. If you're going typically through the line as a senior deacon, you need to be prepared and already know what you need to say as a junior warden. And as a junior warden, you need to be prepared for senior warden. And as
all the way warden, all the way up to the master.
But furthermore, as a senior warden, you need to be planning for your year in the East as well. So you don't need to be learning how to do senior warden and marshal master and planning for your year. You're setting yourself up for failure.
I'd like to reinforce that a little bit. I'd like to reinforce that because I think there's something that they really need to know. Number one, you should be planning for your years in your big seats in the big three way in advance. Mm-hmm. When you're appointed to your first position, you know at that time that you're going to the East if tradition prevails. Start acting like it, start planning for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I was taught by my mentor in floor school and floor work, and one of his mentors, Mike Calhoun, was my mentor for my floor school work, and still is to a great extent. He was and one of my best friends, and a mentor. And yes, we spent many years traveling together and figuring out the woes of Freemasonry. But one of his mentors, Keith Reynolds, who is another good friend of mine and a mentor of mine when it comes to the work, they always stated, whatever seat you're in, you should know the position before you and the position after you. Mm-hmm. At any given time, you should know that. You should just know that, because that means you've studied up to that position that you've been in, and you're getting ready for the next one.
This is especially crucial when you find yourself in a position where, say, the guy ahead of you can't be there, and now you're having to fill in for that position. There's a reason that you have to be proficient in opening and closing all the lodges as wardens now. There's a reason for that.
Yes. And the reason, but it's always been that if the master's gone, the senior warden moves into the master's position and somebody backfills his seat. Mm-hmm. If the senior warden and the junior warden are gone, then, or if the senior warden and the master is gone, then the junior warden steps up, and then they backfill just that one position. If all three of them are gone, per se, it goes to the first junior past master becomes master of the lodge,
Mhm.
and then so forth down based on what the lodge decides. But that's the order, the pecking order. It's supposed to be when somebody's missing. So you should know your work.
Yep.
You should know it. You should know it. There's if you volunteer for that position and if you accept a position, you're volunteering. If you volunteer for a position, you better know it. You better do what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
There's no excuse.
You owe it to your lodge.
Yeah, if you're going into it with in this one, another one of my mentors taught me, which I love him. The same guy that said, if it's not good for the lodge, don't do it. He said, if I ever hear a guy say that, oh, I'll help the lodge out and I'll go into the chair, he'll say, hell no, he's not going into the chair, and I'll make sure and stand up and vote somebody in that cares enough about that seat that they're going to do everything they can for the lodge when they get into that seat. Mm-hmm. Not somebody who just acts like it's the lodge's privilege for them to be there.
And I'll also say this, because before I move on to the next point, to address something that you said, because I'm sure that there'll be some people that will listen to it and they'll say, well, I'm from a small lodge and it's struggling. We're just trying to get officers, right? It's obviously too late this year, but moving forward, if you find yourself in a position where you don't have enough people to fill in all your chairs, well, first of all, that's a bigger problem. But I just want to say, to keep it simple, maybe don't advance your chairs then. There's no harm in staying at one place. If you have people that are already competent at their positions and they don't mind filling in another year, and you really have no one to come in to replace them, don't move the line just for the sake of moving the line, just because you have someone that says, well, I'll go ahead and fill junior warden just for the heck of it. Get people that are passionate.
Also, and you definitely don't do that with the master's seat.
Yeah.
That should never be a, oh, I'll help the lodge situation. That should be man, I'm ready. I'll do it again. I'm happy to do it again. I'm proud to do it again.
Yep.
Let's see if we can turn this around, because 9 times out of 10, that's what's causing you to lose membership anyways, is that line is not doing their jobs.
It's true. Dennis counted. So we know that for a fact. So the second point that I want to address, and I'm going to steal a little bit of Dennis's thunder. If you are an officer, and I'm just talking in general, you really need to go to OLT. If you are a warden, it should almost be a requirement. Particularly if you're new, the lodge should really expect you to go to OLT. If you're a worship master, you need to be at OLT. I'm just saying. And me personally, the lodge needs to invest in its own officers. They need to send them to it. As a grown man, you're already giving your time up to go there. The lodge should at least pony up the money to send you there as well.
And if you're from a struggling lodge that can't do that, maybe that makes a lot of the decision on who goes into the chairs, who's willing to spend that money and learn how to do better things for the lodge. Mm-hmm. Because if you can have all the good intentions of the world, but if you're not ready to pony up when it hurts, then you can always tell the character of a man by looking at his checkbook. You always know, you can tell what somebody believes in by where their money goes.
Oh yeah. People, and we've said this before. People spend money on what's important to them. Not to go off on a tangent, but the same people that will complain about raising dues by $50 will drop $100 on Starbucks every month or something. So it's I agree.
And buy lottery tickets.
Yeah, and buy lottery tickets. And I also want to address probably the two best pieces of advice that was given to me when I was young to the fraternity, and I kept in mind eventually the first time I became a worship master. The two things, I'll just start off with the first. The first thing I want you to keep in mind is that this is a volunteer organization. You cannot, you can demand whatever you want out of the membership, but they people vote with their feet. And that's
a tough one with me too. Yeah.
So my advice is to approach with a servant leadership mentality. You're there to serve the lodge. This is not like a dictatorship. You're not a king. You're there to promote the lodge, to help it to flourish. And so to approach that with a servant mentality will go a very long way. I'm not saying bend over backwards and cater to everybody, but keep in mind you're here to serve the lodge. I guess there's actually
servant leadership.
Servant leadership. So the second thing I would say is that every Mason has joined the fraternity for some reason, right? And you may see some people
not always yours.
It may not always be your reason. You're right. Some people may join because they want to fundraise. Some people may really care strongly about education, or some people care about the history. Some people have they want some kind of fraternal bond with other men, whatever that reason may be. And there are numerous reasons, and there are quite a few of them. And if they can't find what they were looking for, and frankly, people, if you are looking for something and you join looking for that, it's because somewhere along the way, if not explicitly, you were promised that you would find that. But my point is, if they don't find what they're looking for, they will leave. And so it's important to be a well-rounded lodge. And this is something we have talked about before. And so just because you're not interested in something in particular, it goes back to that servant mentality. We need to put our egos aside and be willing to give things opportunity to take root. Positive things. You got to weed out the bad, but encourage and nurture the positive things, because there may be 2 or 3 guys that want to do like a book club. Let them do it, man. Someone may want to give a presentation and launch.
Yeah, help them figure out how to do it. Ask them what they need. The best thing you can do is ask them, so what do you need to make this happen?
Yeah.
Are you just looking for my blessing, or do you need suggestions on books? What do you need? And then put them in touch with who they need to get in touch with to do whatever they need.
And you may even need to go as far as to have I wouldn't say a meeting, like something that goes in a minute book, but like an unofficial meeting where you get with the Lodge brothers and do like a battle plan. Say, draw it on the board. Say, these are the things that most people are interested in. Why did everybody join? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? How can we improve it? Do a strategic meeting.
Brother Jones, you just made a very profound statement right there. You know what that meeting is called, brothers? That meeting is.
It's just me and you. No one's going to answer. I'm waiting on you. I guess you're pausing for emphasis, but it's like there's no one. This isn't a live feed, Dennis.
But they're listening to me as if it was. If I'm talking directly to them.
Oh, I see.
So
okay.
The meeting that he's talking about is your past masters meeting. Mm-hmm. And every successful worshipful master, if they have not had an official past masters meeting, which is, that can be a good called meeting to have. And in fact, make it an event to where you feed them dinner and enjoy their time and whatnot. But that's when you get all your past masters together and say, okay, this is what you've done, what really worked, and be honest, guys. Don't just say that I did this in my year, we should do that again. Because if it bombed the first time, it's unless you have different people in place to make it happen, it might bomb again. Yeah. So you want to coincide that with that as well. And
so I keep adding things to my list, but I've thought of another thing. So let's push through this because I want to be sure we have time for everything.
Okay.
Then the next thing I want to add is it's very easy to distract ourselves with all the things that we would like to do. And I'm not I realize this may conflict a little bit with my last point, but I want to say pick 1 or 2 things that are very important to you that you only have a year to accomplish. and make that your focus. Whatever is most important to you. I have seen worshipful masters, and they take like a very wide, very broad approach, and they come up with so many ideas, and nothing really ever sees fruition because they're spread so thin. So, excuse me. So pick one or two things that's really important to you, and really laser focus in on that. Because hold on, because you only have 1 year typically, and when you are done, you want to be able to look back and say, "I accomplished this." Front row, goofy looking kid.
Pick me. Yes, and that's what your committees are for, guys. So you have your one or two things that you make sure gets done, but you already know who you're going to put in on top of those, in charge of those things, because those are the people that are successful at that kind of thing, and that's who you want in charge of that. But your committees do all the different things for the lodge. It really does take a village. So that's what your committees are for, and your officers should be the chairs of those committees because they volunteered to make a difference in your lodge. So they volunteered for that. However, the people that work with those officers should be people that are in tune with whatever that project is. They're the ones that are going to be enthusiastic and excited about it and get it done. So don't forget that, guys. It takes a lodge. Now, there can be one or two things that you want to make sure happens, and that's fine. But as far as the other things, get you one guy that is a box checker. My wife's a box checker. She checks boxes. That's what she does. She makes a list and she checks boxes. But I'm not a box checker, and so that's why we work well together, because she's checking the boxes, making sure things get done. So get you a box checker and give them that Vanguard list. There's a new one this year, by the way, so make sure you get that one downloaded. And you can check off all the different stuff that you're already doing, and then check off put a heart next to the things you want to do, and then put your priority in there as well, and see where you are. You might be closer than you think to being a Vanguard lodge, because most of the very successful lodges are Vanguard lodges because they're doing Freemasonry.
Yeah.
And they're well-rounded. And that's what the Vanguard does. And it's not that you have to shoot for the Vanguard and just check boxes. But as you're getting things done, if you have one guy that's his focus is determining what made the list and what didn't, and how you can tweak this a little bit so it'll fit into this box instead of being just its own thing without belonging to any of those categories. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? That creates well-rounded lodges. So yes, you as a master, you focus on one or two things that you want real change to happen on. But as a lodge with committees, you address all the things that are needed for the lodge that are going to keep the members around.
Absolutely. Don't kill a good program just because it's not your program.
Yes.
Or something that you care about.
And don't try to rename it and make it your own.
Yes.
And, that's just ridiculous too. It's not about whose name is on it.
Yeah. So Dennis makes a good point. First time for everything, but he makes a good point, and that is focus on one or two things, right? But that doesn't mean to the detriment of everything else. Use your committees, defer duties to them. And by the way, committee meetings aren't supposed to happen during the lodge meeting. Like, figure out meet outside the lodge, figure out what's going to happen, and report that during the meeting. That's your job.
And that doesn't have to be an official meeting either. It can be a phone call.
Oh, yeah,
And it can also be a Zoom meeting too, because it's not discussing ritual.
Yeah.
You can have those meetings on Zoom and talk to your brothers and hash things out without worry about breaking laws.
Yep. So the last thing that I want to bring up, and this is kind of, I guess it's unorthodox, I don't know, but it's a trick that I learned back when I was an educator, and specifically with student council. So what we would do is we went and bought one of those giant calendars, like the ones you put on the desk, you know what I'm talking about? And at the beginning of the year, we went through it and planned out every month. What's our theme this month? When's our meeting? What are we going to do? So as a lodge, what I would recommend is put down all your meeting dates, put down all the other meeting dates in your district. You want to encourage visitation.
Put those in pen. All meeting dates go in pen.
Sure.
Stated meetings go in pen, and Grand Lodge functions go in pen.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, you're right. All events like Grand Lodge functions, things like that, all the pendant bodies, things like that, that should be the first thing you put down, right? But then look at every meeting that you have that month. What's our theme going to be? Plan it out. Do we want to have a speaker? What do we want them to speak about? So if you're going to invite someone, be sure you put them on there. If you want to say, hey, this is going to be more of a historic theme, be sure you say like you're going to have a brother from the lodge give like a presentation on lodge history or something. Put it all on there. Put it all on the map. Not the map, the calendar.
It is a map. It's a road map of your month, of your year, and it's your agenda.
But put as much information on there as you can. Now, things come up like degrees and things like that. But I would even say, pick a day that doesn't have many meetings throughout the month. And for example, like at one of my lodges, the last 2 Mondays, that's unless circumstances are extenuating, those are when we do degrees. So we know if there's going to be a degree, it's going to be one of these 2 Mondays, and just leave those open. But plan out your year, because there's nothing worse than if you don't plan, things happen to you. If you're not proactive, you're reactive. So plan out your year. It's a bit of work, but it's all front loaded. So once you're done, it's mostly done. And then transfer that information to like a district calendar or something like that, and share it with all the brothers so they get.
Yes, you should have a digital calendar of all your events. If you do not, well, okay. So here's something that I'm really pushing hard this year when I talk to anybody, and that is have a lodge email and calendar. Mm-hmm. You know, every lodge at one time you had the guys with using their own emails because not everybody had an email, but now that is the lower standard. So every lodge should have their very own email, and you should make it secretary.goliad94@gmail.com. It's free. And then you put, as one person is writing out the calendar, the other person can be typing out the calendar. And then everybody has access to it. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. You can give access to that calendar to everybody, whether you have a website or not.
So simple, a Gen Xer could do it.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, anybody that knows me, if it's not on my calendar, I'm not going. I won't be there. Because I have planned out my life that way. I've planned out my free time that way. I've planned out everything based on my calendar. If I don't have you in my calendar, mm-hmm. I'm not going.
I can't even call Dennis unless he has me booked. You won't even talk
That's
to me.
Right. I'll send him an agenda, a meeting agenda.
Send me a meeting agenda. What are we going to talk about today? All right. So I feel as though we covered everything. That this is a very good primer.
I gave you a good tag for the next real important topic to make a good meeting better, and that's the agenda. Just like the calendar is the agenda for your year, every meeting you should have an agenda. You can have a template.
You just said it. Yeah, okay, but that's a good point. Like agendas are
that makes your meeting flow fast.
Huh?
Yeah, it makes your meeting flow fast.
But and I've seen lodges where they're like, if it's not on the agenda, it's not going to come up. But definitely have a roadmap for your meeting. Again, plan ahead. Don't let your meeting happen. Plan out your meeting. Things are going to happen, like voting. That happens. Like however it goes, that's something you don't really have control over. But be proactive and plan your meeting out.
Yeah, but you know if you have to vote or not.
Yeah. It's good to know.
You should know if you're going to have that candidate form come in that night.
When a worship master is just going through the agenda and he's like, do we have any petitions? No. Do we have any petitions to vote on? Well,
he should already know.
You should already know this. You should already
That
know
question is a formality. You're
Yeah.
basically saying, I know we have a petition. That's your cue.
Yeah.
And you're just being nice about how you ask.
Because really, you should streamline your meeting. If there's not going to be discussion on the topic, I know we're talking about seconds here, right? The seconds add up, and it also makes you look like you're not prepared for your meeting. So plan ahead, know what's going to come up, talk to your secretary, come up with an agenda, know what the topics are going to be, and just move right through it. That's a great point. I applaud you, Dennis, for bringing that up. I didn't think about that.
And in all reality, all your committees should have their meetings a week prior so that they can tell the secretary, okay, we need to be on the agenda. And then the only person that speaks is the chairman.
Yep.
Nobody else gets up. Chairman stands up and talks about what they're going to talk about and then sits down.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple.
Yep.
And man, that's what we did in my year. And I can tell
that's how we did it in my year.
That's right.
You sound like
but you know what? I was going to say, though, it wasn't my idea. We learned that from officer leadership training. My secretary and I went together, my mentor and friend, Michael Calhoun, we went to OLT together in Corpus. And, you know, he was my secretary and he made the agendas and we still use them today. I'm using our
content
agenda
to learn at OLT.
There is. And that's what I was going to say is that all the stuff that we've talked about tonight, I've learned in bits and pieces of OLT and learning from other masters from OLT, because it wasn't just what was taught. It was the discussions that were had in and around officer leadership training, you know, with all the brothers that I met.
Let's hear your parting thoughts, Dennis.
Wow. There's just too many because this is such an important topic.
Top three.
Top three. Such a great one.
Top two.
Oh my gosh. I know. Brothers, I can't stress enough how important you need to remember that peace and harmony is created by being structured and being on point and ready, being prepared. Preparation creates peace and harmony. Peace and harmony is something that we actively pursue when we're preparing what we're going to do, and we're always keeping in mind that whatever the other person is stating or saying, it's coming from a good place. They may say it differently than we're ready to accept it, but you've always got to believe that person in good faith is coming from the right place.
Yep.
Like I was saying earlier, all these things I learned from officer leadership training.
Mm-hmm.
I learned it from smarter men than myself. I have mentors. I still have mentors. I had them then. I have them now. In different stages in your life, some will fall away and others will grow depending on what you're doing in Freemasonry.
Mm-hmm.
And so find them, utilize them, and do the best to your ability, and you're going to be fine. And remember what Joe K always says: if it's good for the lodge, do it. If it's not good for the lodge, don't.
Yep.
And if everyone's always happy at your lodge, then you're not doing a damn thing.
That's true. I would just like to say, first of all, as always, I do appreciate you coming on here, Dennis. I know I razz you, but you're the best co-host I've ever had, and I don't want you to forget that, first and foremost. That said, lots of good topics that we covered.
Don't let them fool you, folks. I'm the only co-host he's ever had.
Yeah. Anyway, so
I'm the only one that counts.
Yeah. But anyway, lots of good nuggets in this particular podcast, if I say so myself. Definitely, if there's anyone that is due to an office, or if you've just been installed, you're not really sure what to do, I'd recommend giving this another listen, and not for my benefit, more for yours. Get a pen and paper and write down the real takeaways from this podcast, and find a way to implement it in your lodge. And furthermore, share it with other brothers that you think will
Yes.
benefit. I mean, this wasn't really a very planned meeting you and I had, but really the advice that you and I shared is the accumulation of years of experience.
Yes.
Doing leadership roles and activities and things like that. And so I don't think there's a single piece of bad advice in this entire podcast. I mean, I did it out anyway, right? But
I agree.
Really good.
I agree. This has come from people, smarter than us that have been doing it a lot longer than us. And we just happened to implement a lot of the things that they taught us.
Yeah.
And it worked out good for us. And so now we're preaching it on the hill because, it worked out good for us.
So just to reiterate some of the stuff I said at opening, if you found value in this podcast, or if you watch this on YouTube or whatever, please be sure to drop a like, give us a subscribe, give us a positive rating, whatever medium you're using to get this content. If you found value in it, please leave something positive. If you're watching on YouTube, I'd really appreciate it if you got something particular of value, leave a comment and share that with everybody else, and spur some conversation. Finally, again, great merchandise from the San Antonio Hat Company. Link below. Consider contributing to Patreon or buy me a coffee. Patreon, like I said, dusting that bad boy off. Doesn't have a whole lot of structure to it yet. I'm not sure what direction. Well, we're not sure what direction we really want to take it. We're looking at creating some custom content just for Patreon, possibly offering one-on-one.
Yeah, you'll get
group consultation.
Yes.
For the Patreons. Still kind of trying to get a feel for what people may be interested in, but definitely if there's no Patreons, doesn't really matter anyway, right? So if you get any value out of this, feed the things that you want to grow, start the things that got to go. If you enjoy Masonic Improvement, if you want to see it grow, if you want to see more of these ideas in your lodge and in your district, yes, let us know. And probably aside from a comment in its description, one of the best ways to let us know is look at our Patreon, buy us a coffee, something along those lines. Buy some merchandise, represent us out in public at your lodge. That said, thank you again, Dennis, for your time. Brothers, catch you in the next one. Thanks again for listening or watching.
Keep it between the points, brothers.